Howdy friends, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to talk about whether mason jars are the best choice to make tinctures. So my son is doing his French lessons right now over Zoom, so I thought this would be a great time to get outside, harvest some nettles. My cat is... He always comes out and he's like hanging on for dear life. Oh my goodness. Sorry. I just had to share. Malfoy, you're crazy. I thought this would be a great time to come out and make a video. I have to harvest some nettles. We're having potato leek nettle soup for dinner. I have a video on that and a recipe, so I'll make sure you have all the links in the description so you can check that out if you want. But I wanted to come out and film about using mason jars to make tinctures because there are pros and cons to this. Now, I was all prepared and then my tripod broke, so I'm having to film this old school, holding the camera out with my arm. We're gonna make this work, friends, right? We can do this. So let's talk about mason jars and should we be using them to make tinctures? Okay, I lied a little bit because look at these. I have so many glorious nettles to harvest, and around the corner here, my wild leeks have started to come up, and every year the patches get bigger and bigger, which is really exciting. That means they're actually happy. There's another one back there somewhere. Don't mind the junk. We are still dealing with stuff from the previous owners. Isn't that crazy? They left so much behind. But anyway, I've got lots of nettles to harvest. Okay, I kind of found this interesting spot to prop up my phone. So we can talk about using mason jars to make tinctures. So there's some pros and some cons around this. And I want to talk a little bit about the fact that when I was first studying herbal medicine, it was sort of shared with me, and I adopted this sort of purist point of view around having to use amber glass bottles. Now, in a perfect world, would I use amber glass all the time? Absolutely. One of the things that we have to be aware of when we're making our tinctures is oxidation. And oxidation, as we know, causes damage to things. It causes things to degrade. It reduces their medicinal properties. And so what causes oxidation? One of the things is exposure to light. So if you can use darker glass, that's great. But as I started to move along in my herbal journey and I became busier, I became a mom, and actually the busy had nothing to do with this. It was more about trying to actually find amber glass. It's not that easy, and it's not accessible financially. So one of the cons or the downsides of using mason jars, there's actually two main downsides to using mason jars. One would be the fact that it's not dark glass, it's clear glass. So how are you going to protect your tinctures from oxidation? How are you going to protect them from exposure to light, right? So I want you to think about that. For me, I can actually I'll film a video when I get back inside, and I can show you what my tincture cabinet looks like. It's in a closet that only has a light that I can turn on with a pull string, so that way it doesn't get left on accidentally. And so they're protected from light that way. It's also in a cool location, away from any heat sources, which is another way that things oxidize. But another worry with mason jars is the metal lid. And so the metal lid eventually, now I've had some people come at me and they're like, alcohol doesn't corrode metal. And I'm like, okay, friends, but I have anecdotal evidence where my tinctures have corroded the metal lid. Now, maybe it's the combination of the medicine I'm pulling out, things like resins that are causing the metal lid to corrode. But once it corrodes, I don't want to use it anymore because those bits of metal flakes have gotten into my tincture. So the metal lid would be one of the downsides of mason jars. However, we have a fix for that. We can just use a layer of parchment paper. I do recommend parchment paper over wax paper. I do think that the alcohol will eat away at the wax as well. So you can put parchment paper on top, and that would help alleviate the con of having a metal lid with a mason jar. All right, so what are some of the pros of using mason jars? One, they're accessible. They're easy to find. You can get them at thrift stores. You can get them at Canadian Tire if you're Canadian. You can get them at Walmart. You can get them at pretty much any hardware store. Grocery stores even carry them now. They're really, really easy to find. Sometimes you can be gifted them. You can find them at garage sales. So easy access. They're also fairly inexpensive, especially if you buy them used, although people have caught on, friends, that they're popular and useful. And so sometimes, those thrift stores will jack the price up, but it's still usually cheaper than buying them new. Even buying them new, wait for them to go on sale, buy them in bulk. So they're accessible, they're inexpensive, and they're easy to find. So that would be the biggest pros. The other pros is that they're glass. The one thing I would say is please don't use plastic to make your tinctures. So because they're glass, that makes them a really great option for making tinctures. They also come in standardized sizes. So 250 ml, 500 milliliters. That makes doing your math easy when it comes to making tinctures. If you're new to making tinctures, snag my free tincture guide. I'll put a link to that below as well. It'll tell you everything you need to know about how, like the basics, the nitty-gritty of how to make tinctures. If you want to deepen your knowledge with medicine, that's where you want to start exploring my membership platform, where I've been teaching for over 2 years now. It's an amazing library. And you would get access to a different tincture guide, as well as lots of videos and that kind of stuff. So you can check that out below as well. So some final thoughts before I go and I harvest my nettles. Are mason jars the absolute perfect 100% best choice for making tinctures? No. They would be if they had a different lid, if they didn't have a metal lid, and if they had darker glass. However, I'm willing to set aside my puritanical views around medicine making, because ultimately, why do I create this content? Why do I create videos and why do I teach? Because I want more people making herbal medicine. And mason jars are inexpensive, they're easy to find, they're made of glass, and they have standardized measurements in terms of their size, which makes it really easy. So in my books, I still use mason jars to this day. You saw a quick little sneak peek inside my apothecary, and you'll see that almost all of them, I still use mason jars for all the reasons I listed. They're easy to find, inexpensive, and they're still made of glass. So I say that if the barrier to you making medicine has been you waiting to find the perfect glass jar, go get mason jars. If you can find amber glass bottles, great. I say use those. But in the meantime, use your mason jars, make your medicine, connect with the earth, and start living a more plant-based, holistic lifestyle if you can. If you have any questions, you know what to do, leave them below. And until next time, this is Corinne from Spiraea Herbs, wishing you health and wellness.